Some of you might remember a man named Eric Clanton, who was allegedly the man in the following clip swinging a bike lock onto a man's head. Keep in mind, this was against a neutral party who was only trying to keep the peace.
Oh shit, he's bleeding. Yo.
Clanton was seen at the protest on the same day in the same clothes, unmasked. But even the loads of evidence that suggested that he was, in fact, this man was not enough to convict him of anything beyond a misdemeanor.
They compiled it all. They found this man who matched every detail. Let's break down the clues. Shoes, match. Eyes.
Let's enhance it.
Blue, match. Glasses, match. Height, approximately 15 Starbucks ventis. That's a match. They started superimposing his face to confirm. Match. They used facial recognition software. Match. And then this footage surfaced, where his mask slipped off. Bingo. Next, they would start compiling information. His social media, address, phone number, employment. Turns out he's a teacher's assistant at a local university, specializing in ethics and moral philosophy.
The state has a monopoly on how we conceive of justice.
This was a case where police were quoted as saying, "The internet did the work for us." I don't know how the evidence presented wasn't enough. Internet detectives even uncovered his online dating profile, his Rate My Professor page, as well as his Amazon account, which they used to send bike locks right to his house. After a lot of legal foot dragging, people finally got what they wanted. Clanton in front of a judge. According to the deposition that has been going around, he was found guilty of the misdemeanor charge for battery. All other charges were dropped, as well as the charge for wearing a mask to avoid being identified. So, according to the eyes of the law, the man in the footage was indeed Eric Clanton, and he was found guilty. However, they apparently found that none of the charges should stick. The internet handed this guy over on a silver platter, and the law could only convict for a misdemeanor? God forbid, he might not be able to vote in 2020 otherwise. Can you imagine the wall-to-wall CNN, MSNBC, ABC, Fox, BBC, Guardian coverage of this if his political alignment was on the other side? If you needed proof that everything was selectively enforced, especially in places like Berkeley, this case is proof of that. I must reiterate, the law had determined that the man in the footage was indeed Eric Clanton, and the evidence was enough to charge him, but only for battery. What is the punishment for doing what Eric Clanton did, you might ask? A $250 fine and 3 years probation. That means if you do the same thing seen in this footage, you face a smaller fine and sentence than somebody who unethically distributed a plastic straw to a customer at a restaurant. Think about that next time you consider going to one of these rallies. These people essentially have impunity to do whatever they want to do, or rather whatever they've been ordered to do, and even the law cannot take them down. Funny that these types see themselves as champions of the people as they carry out the work of corrupt political figures. This is not an isolated incident, nor will it be the last time we see something like this. In Portland, Oregon, the mayor, who is also the police chief, like a villain from an 80s action movie, has ordered the police to stand down, and they are not allowed to interfere with their protesters, or, counter-protesters. Think about what will happen if this continues and gets worse. Things are already volatile, and it should be clear to everybody at this point that they are playing to win by any means necessary. They have people in academia, in the media, in politics, and they are never held accountable for anything that they provoke. Think about this. How many outlets out there, including right-wing news outlets, have covered this story at all? Why is it that nobody seems to be remotely interested in this? Is this what the so-called free press is supposed to do? to decide when a story should be talked about and when it should be forgotten and lost into the memory hole?
And it could be that while unemployment and the economy worsens, he could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think. And that is our job.
Yeah, if you look at the issues.
You might be surprised to hear this, but the media are heroic avatars of the free press, not the shills and hacks that we have come to understand them to be. All of these media outlets whose journalism lie in a bed of half-truths are actually stunning and brave. Hey, somebody get CNN one of those Jenner Woman of the Year awards. Just listen to this one from CNN. We thank soldiers for their service because they devote themselves to protecting our freedoms, and we should. But we should also thank the media for the same reason, especially when the stakes have never been higher. This is, of course, no surprise coming from CNN. Here's another piece from CNN. The role of Stockman in the play is like the role of mainstream media in democratic society, a revealer of truths that some of those in power for their own selfish reasons would like to keep hidden. Journalists are uniquely qualified to perform that vital role of discovering truth and combating falsehood. They have the unique skills, training, and resources required, the courage and commitment needed, and an obligation under a demanding code of journalistic ethics to be responsible for the accuracy and fairness of their statements in a way that other news sources and opinions not bound by the code, including a president who impressively averages 7.6 mistruths a day, are not. The label enemy of the people can be applied to the press only in the ironic sense in which it is applied to the protagonist Henrik Ibsen's 1882 play of the same title, though that character is courageously trying to help the people in his hometown. In the length of barely 3 paragraphs, they describe themselves using the words unique and courageous twice. It's some sort of joke that these are the ones that pat themselves so hard on the back.
Also interesting is, remember, it's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us. And in full disclosure, let's take a look at what is in there and what it means.
Kira, let me say this at the start. I'm glad you ran that story, because apparently the only difference between the New York Times and CNN is that when a reporter for the New York Times fakes a story, he's fired, and at CNN he's not. Your bureau chief, John Zarella, deliberately faked the story yesterday.
Mr. LaPierre, I have to stop you there. No one fakes stories at CNN, and John Zarella definitely did not fake a story at CNN. You're very off base. I'm going to let you say your opinion, and let's have a conversation, but don't accuse our reporter of faking any stories, sir.
Let me say it again, in front of the whole country. Your reporter faked that story yesterday.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about the trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
Plaguing our country.
Plaguing our country. CNN will, of course, champion causes to shut down their competitors, just like they did with Alex Jones. They were pushing for this just a few weeks ago, and I'm certain that their influence played at least a small part. When it comes to telling people that you are the only one they can trust, CNN does it best. Could it be that CNN is out of their mind, unable to string together a coherent and consistent message to their dwindling viewers? You be the judge. We have reached a point where we need more and more people to start creating content, and I believe this will lead to competitors actually rising to challenge them. Well, that'll be the end of this video. I have some more things I'd like to talk about in either a video later today or tomorrow, but for now, here it is, your moment of clarity.